I absolutely cried at the end. There were tears streaming down my face by the end of this. Hello, my librarians. Welcome to the queerest book-filled corner on the internet. In case you are new, I am the Lesbian Library, and I make queer book and writing content across all identities and genres. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We are talking about 8 queer book recommendations for AAPI month. In case you didn't know, May is Asian American and Pacific Islander month, aka AAPI. Now, this is an umbrella term that encapsulates a multitude of geographic labels and places, so I'm going to put them all up on the screen so you know the qualifications to make this list. So without further ado, let's get into the book chat. First up, we have a fantastic literary novel, The Subtweet by Vivek, Shraya. This is about 2 musicians, one who is an indie artist and the other who is a viral internet sensation. The viral internet sensation covers the indie artist's song, which then catapults them into an unexpected yet transformative friendship. However, it is not long before the music industry is attempting to pit these two against each other, which results in a tweet that virtually implodes everything they had been working towards. Now, this is a really interesting book because it doesn't actually feature any romance between the characters. It is all about platonic relationships, which I do think is more impactful in the long run, especially when this book packs the punches that it does. And it also features 2 trans women main characters. However, that is never mentioned in the book itself, but that is confirmed by the author. So I highly recommend picking this book up. Okay, for a literary pick, we have All This Could Be Different by Sarah Thankham Mathews. It is about an individual who graduates during the recession. However, she has a great job, a great apartment. She's able to send money back to her family in India, is starting to build a community, and has a couple queer crushes. So she is figuring things out. However, just when things start to go up, they begin to come back down again because layoffs are looming, an eviction is coming potentially. She feels like she can't trust anyone despite developing these relationships with people. So what does she do? She throws herself headfirst into a relationship, of course, and then her friend comes up with a scheme to make everything better for them. It's up to you to see how that all plays out. I have started this book, but I haven't finished it yet, so I really need to. I'm super excited about it, and the writing style is unlike anything that I have read to date. This comes very highly recommended to me, so go ahead and check it out for yourselves as well. This next title is kind of a literary contemporary mashup. It is Roses in the Mouth of a Lion by Bushra, Rehman. This book is absolutely gorgeous. It is told over a long period of time, basically this woman's entire adolescence growing up in New York in the 80s. She discovers she is queer at a very young age. However, it is not accepted not only in the decade this takes place, but also in her family. When she gets into an elite high school, she starts acting out and rebelling a bit with this girl she meets, who is a friend and eventually does potentially maybe become more. Once her secret is found out, she is faced with having to either stay in this life that she knows she can't be herself in, or leave and face so many potential unknowns. However, she would be able to be her true self. This book is beautifully written. I absolutely cried at the end. There were tears streaming down my face by the end of this book because it is just so perfectly crafted. You go through this range of emotions and experiences with the main character, and you truly feel connected to her and everything that she is going through. And it is also heartbreaking to watch her going through these events in life, knowing that if she revealed her true self to her family, she would not be accepted. So I really highly recommend this book. It is a coming of age because it is kind of her adult self looking back or telling the story of her life. I would not say it is a young adult book by any means for that reason, so highly recommend checking it out. Next, we have our singular horror pick, which was so hard to narrow down, but I finally landed on She is a Haunting by Trang, Tran. This is a paranormal young adult horror about a teenager in the summer between senior year of high school and freshman year of college. She has made a deal with her estranged father that he will pay for her college as long as she comes to spend the summer with him in Vietnam fixing up a house. However, once she gets there, paranormal shit starts to ensue. Specifically, she keeps seeing the ghost of this Vietnamese woman who says don't eat the food repeatedly. She is the only one of her family who is having these experiences, so it is solely up to her and a local girl to get her family out of there before the house eats them. Highly recommend this book. It has beautiful lyrical prose that does not feel young adult. So if you're worried about the young adult classification, please don't let it affect you. If you love horror books, this is for you. The author really does an excellent job of writing really nitty-gritty horror situations, so you truly feel like you are experiencing what the main character is in the most ooey gooey way possible. So I really highly recommend going and picking this up. For our young adult romance pick, we have Hani and Ishu's Guide to Dating by Adiba Jaigirdar. This is a young adult fake dating romance about two main characters who concoct this fake dating scheme because one of them wants to be head girl but isn't popular enough, and the other wants to prove she is in fact bisexual to her friends. It's super interesting though because they barely know each other when they come up with this scheme. So everyone in their life is like, we didn't know you knew each other's names. How are you dating? And for a young adult romance, it deals with some really heavy themes. Obviously, biphobia because one of the main characters comes out to her friends as bi and they don't believe her. And this is also because of racism in Ireland. The two main characters are Bangladeshi and everyone else in the book is white, which of course causes so many issues, but there's some really horrific microaggressions in here that will put your jaw on the floor because the white characters just don't realize it, and it's super frustrating. It also deals with the theme of friendship and relationships in general. What should you pursue, what shouldn't you pursue, and what you deserve as just a human being. And this author is really prolific. She has so many fantastic young adult contemporary romance books that I highly recommend you checking out all of them. This one specifically has a really special place in my heart. Next in romance, we have True Love and Other Impossible Odds by Christina Lee. This is one that I don't have with me, but I would kill for a copy. I need to buy one soon. This is about a young woman who starts her freshman year at college, and she is dealing with grief because her mother passed away, and she is very analytical and hasn't really had any romantic experience. So she comes up with this whole dating game based on numbers and equations, which in theory will provide her with the perfect guy. And this catches fire across campus. Everyone is participating in this game that started out as a class project. However, as time goes on, she starts to realize that just because two people look together on paper doesn't mean that they should be together, because she might be starting to have feelings for her coworker in the library who absolutely hates her guts when she should be falling head over heels for the guy she was matched up with. So obviously, queer awakening hijinks do ensue. This is such a sweet coming of age romance. It is kind of within the young adult sphere, but I don't really consider it young adult since the main character is in college and there is kind of a fade to black spice scene. It is a very slow burn and it does deal heavily with themes of grief, but it's so important to watch her growth over the course of the book and just come into the woman that she was always meant to be. So I highly recommend checking this book out. And for another romance, we have Single Player by Tara Tai. I don't actually have this book with me, but it is absolutely fantastic. It is about two video game creators who end up working at the same company. One is very jaded, but also very great at what they do, and the other is a brand new ingenue who's just ready to shake things up. However, the new girl has been brought in to write the romance plot of the video game, which the other character is vehemently opposed to. So there is a little bit of rivals to lovers, and of course there is that workplace trope as well. And there is also a fake dating plot, not between the two main characters, but between a main character and a sub character that's really fun. I just think it's a great addition. And also the new girl at the company discovers a plot to oust the creator that has been there for a while to not have to include diversity in the games they are creating. So it deals really heavily in themes of patriarchy and misogyny in video game creating spaces. And this book is fantastic. I promise I hate video games. Controversial take. I don't like them at all. I also don't like D&D and I don't like cosplay, which are all very heavily featured in this book, and I loved this. So please do not let those aspects scare you away. I promise, even if you aren't a big fan of those things, you will still really enjoy the romance between the two characters. They play so well off each other. It's super funny, and the tension between them is palpable. So I highly recommend checking this book out. For our fantasy/mythology pick, we have Sister Snake by Amanda Lee Coe. I do apologize if there is a glare on this one. I did pick it up from my library and I am currently reading it. This book is about two sisters, one who lives a very conservative, put together, quote-unquote life in Singapore, and the other who is a sugar baby in New York. However, the sugar baby in New York experiences a violent accident, so the sister in Singapore does come to New York to help her, and in the process she convinces her to move back to Singapore so she can keep an eye on her. The sugar baby's antics in Singapore get so insane that the other sister is starting to regret her decision because she fears being ousted by this community that took her forever to get into. The two sisters have a secret. They were once both snakes basking in the moon during the Tang dynasty 1,000 years ago. So that's where the fantasy aspect comes into this, because this is a retelling of the Chinese folktale, The Legend of the White Snake. So far, this book is really interesting. I love the character dynamics and I also love the writing style. I am flying through it because I am just so invested to see what happens to these two characters, and it has a really interesting sibling dynamic. They were completely estranged and now they're back together, and it's a whole thing. So far I really recommend picking up this book. In our first of two nonfiction, we have a beautiful memoir called From Here. This is such a transformative book. It is about a woman who grows up in Jordan in the 80s, which is where she finds out she is queer. However, it is completely illegal there. So eventually she does go to college in America, where she applies for and is granted political asylum. This results in her family completely cutting her off. So she is alone in a country where she is not native to and also has no money, just trying to figure it out. But of course she does. She eventually finds her wife and has children and does get in contact with her parents again one day. This book will suck you in from start to finish. It is so beautifully written. You are completely enamored with the main character and just want to see her succeed in life, which of course she does, but the trials and tribulations that it takes to get there are just absolute must reads. So please go and pick yourself up a copy. I actually own this, even though it looks like a library book. I got it used. For our second and last nonfiction pick, we do have another memoir that is very near and dear to my heart. We have Ma and Me by Putsata Reang. This is about a Cambodian refugee who was taken out of the country as a child by her parents. Over the course of the journey, everyone thought that she had died, but her mother resisted and said, no, I know she's alive. And when they get to their destination, she immediately rushed her into medical care, which saved her life. So she spent the rest of her existence making up that debt to her mom. However, when she comes out as gay, it completely destroys their relationship and causes Putsata to reevaluate everything she thought her life stood for. This book is stunningly beautiful. It talks about generational trauma, talks about filial duty, and it also talks about what it means to be a queer person from an immigrant family. Putsata is actually a world-renowned journalist now, and she lives very happily with her partner. My grandma is featured in her book because she was her kindergarten teacher, so they have a really sweet relationship. So this book is really near and dear to my heart, and I highly recommend you pick it up. Thank you so much for watching and investing in yourself by diversifying your TBR. If you liked this, make sure to check out my Substack post with the full list of over 60 queer books that have AAPI representation. I highly recommend them. I tried to fit as many as I could into a video, but I also didn't want it to be hours long. And again, if you really enjoyed this, don't forget to support by giving a like, maybe sharing, maybe commenting, maybe subscribing. I'm not picky. And also make sure to check out my other social media, Instagram, Substack, Patreon, TikTok. I've got the works, and it's all queer books and writing. So thank you again for tuning in, and I will see you next time. Happy reading!